years, or more than 200 years. And we fund both local individuals and families directly, mainly supporting them with their energy costs, but we also fund around 50 local organisations, local charities in the area. The value of about 2.6 million a year. So that's the role of charity. I'm also a local resident. I've lived in Hampton for the last 5 years, and in the borough for around 15. So my role is as chair, as I say, I'm independent of the council. That's why I've been selected. I'm going to ask councillors to introduce themselves in a minute, but just to explain what this event is all about. It's a community conversation. It's part of the council's community engagement programme, and it's designed as an opportunity for residents and councillors to have a conversation, to discuss issues that affect the local community. It's not designed as an opportunity to raise very specific personal issues, but if you do want to do that, then please speak to solicitors after the main event. So, can I ask the councillors to introduce themselves? So we can start.
Hi, I'm Jeremy Davis. I'm a Councillor North Councillor for the last 3 years.
I'm Elizabeth Gallagher, and I'm also a Councillor in Hampton North. Councillor Susan Wilson, I'm a Councillor in Hampton North.
Gareth Rice, Leader of the Council, Wards Member for Hampton, 2010. There we go.
Councillor Sam Dalton, Councillor for Hampton for the last 3 years.
Good evening, I'm Caroline Wren, I'm Councillor in Fulwell and Hampton Hill, have been for the past 3 years, and I am tonight's representative from the Green Official Opposition Management Council.
I'm Jonathan Cardy, yet another Dev member of this panel, and I've been a York councillor here in Fulwell and Hampton Hill since 2006, I think. So thank you all for coming on tonight.
Good evening, I'm Matthew Hall. I'm also a Fulwell and Hampton Hill councillor, and I've been a councillor for 7 years.
Thank you. Just to say we've had apologies from Councillor Introductions. Let me just talk through the format, how this evening is going to run. We'll start with 3 priority themes, which are transport, community safety and supporting local businesses. One of the councillors on the panel will introduce that theme and talk for about 2 minutes, and then it'll be open to your thoughts and comments, both those here in the room, but we also have people joining us online. A section of the event will last for about 45 minutes, and then there'll be an opportunity for residents to ask open questions and share their thoughts on any issue that they'd like to. And again, that will be from here in the room, but also those on the live stream able to ask questions as well. Residents attending virtually, if we can ask you to please try contributions during the themed discussion relevant to that particular discussion, and then any other themes or questions that you want to raise for the open session at the end. All speakers need to use a microphone. That's why with the amplification in the room, but it's also to make sure that everybody listening online can hear. We have 2 ESL interpreters here at the front. They're going to be doing about minutes each, and we'll swap between them. And there are closed captions for those watching online. Just to explain where the fire exits are, 1 around the corner here, and then 2 at the back. The ones at the back are step 3, but this one in the corner here is not. There are a couple of steps. If you do hear a fire alarm, it isn't a test. It's the real thing, so please do use the nearest exit. that's all. Thank you. I think that's all the preliminaries. So we'll start with the first priority theme, which is public transport. I'll hand over to Councillor Rock.
Thank you. So the level of public transport accessibility in this area overall is very low by London standards. A small area around Fulwell Station is assessed to have an average level of public transport access. It's really flexible, and parts of Hampton have the lowest public transport rating. The London bus network is run by Transport for London and not the council. Many bus routes here are local, which means it only takes one bus being delayed or cancelled to result in long gap service and sometimes crowded service. The rail service from Shepperton to Waterloo by Kingston runs every. So the rail service runs from Shepperton to Waterloo by Kingston every 30 minutes during the week. There's only a very limited service connecting the area with Richmond. It's operated by South West Railway, which has just been nationalised. I don't think anyone's yet formed a formal view on how this has affected the service, but it'd be critical to know everyone does people on that. My own thinking about it as a train says that the extra faster rush hour services between Hampton and Fulwell and Waterloo is very frequently cancelled, especially in the school holidays, which is usually quite a lot. It's worth noting that bus mileage and rail services were reduced in response, but neither has been reinstated fully to pre-COVID levels, and usage hasn't returned fully to pre-2020 levels either. An interesting point to note is that the council funds the Freedom Pass, and people make the bus pass travellers free, but it's currently paid for by the council. The council provides more funding to TfL to pay for the Freedom Pass, and it receives from TfL towards highways. And a few current issues that are ongoing. Funding constraints at TfL and central government don't currently point to any material increase in the level of bus or rail services in the foreseeable future. TfL previously said that Crossrail would enable bus services from Cascade to out of London. It then said that ULEZ would be accompanied by more buses for out of London, neither of which has happened since Superloop, and the SL7 services goes through the area but doesn't stop here. The way to make the environment at bus stops is important, given how long sometimes people have to wait, but some stops have no shelters or seating or real-time information displays yet. And most importantly, the low frequency of bus service and the single railway line means that public transport in the area lacks resilience. If anything goes wrong, then they need no alternative. There have been a few recent local developments. Many local including 33 111 to 8 hour electric. And TfL plans to electrify all their buses by 2034. Teddington Station now has the lifts installed, and that obviously helps with accessibility and cross-platform change of traffic between Jackson and Britain lines. According to the statistics, bus performance overall has improved in the last 12 months, probably due to the works at Ambrose and elsewhere easing. And the council continues to invest in different resurfacing, including road crossing and installing cycle parking. The council receives many complaints about cyclists and e-bikes, but it recognises that e-bikes give allow access between home and public transport and can be really important to many people when public transport fails in the borough. And in relation to e-bikes, it's worth noting that there is currently a very short-term consultation and consultation happening about e-bikes and bikes in particular. In advance of the meeting next Tuesday, the transport meeting that we have representatives from online. If you're interested and you have feedback on bikes, you can email e-bikes@richmond.gov.uk. And your feedback is very much appreciated. but that consultation closes this Friday, so you need to be brief. And just to note also, Council has undertaken a bar-wide consultation to inform the transport strategy. Over 1,700 comments were received. Some of the common themes that arrived for this area being found the early rail service on some of the lack of bus services in the Hampton North area. Yeah, and a few other things, but these will help inform Council lobbying priorities for Transport London and the railway company.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, so it's over to you now to share your thoughts and to ask any questions. We've got two roving mics, so if anyone wants to...
I need the Zoom.
Yes, let's do that again.
Mic check.
Thank you. I want to raise the issue of the poor management of driver changeovers on the bus services R70, 285 and the R68. Often these changes are made, drivers are not there, and they seem to be changing at all different points nowadays rather than one changeover stop. So if that can be raised as an issue with the transport bus service. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good point. We do regular liaison meeting with the bus operators, and I can assure you that's one of those things that gets raised. We meet with them, and where it's a case of they need to make sure that somebody is available to take over the bus thing, then that I think is something that's more win than getting rid of that altogether. Because obviously the idea behind it stops is partly to shift from one drive to the next, and partly to regulate the service and prevent the buses pumping too much. But yes, we do regularly lobby. We are aware of the problem, and we regularly lobby the bus operators about it.
Thank you.
I just wondered, is there any chance of getting regular train service to Richmond direct? There seems to be only 2 trains in the morning and 2 trains in the evening, which are often cancelled. I think it would make a tremendous difference for regular service to Richmond.
It's something, yes, it's something that we would all like to see. The slightly faster services in the morning and in the evening are rare and refreshing fruits, and not having to sit on the train for about 55 minutes. But the problem we face is capacity on the network. This is what the other comes back all of the time, is about the fact that they've got all of these additional trains which need to run. They can just about squeeze the morning rush in. But we will keep knocking on their door and asking for it, because I agree it's a very good idea. Not quite, but you know, the railway services never run on logic. It's quite reverse.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Right. Can I ask what's liaisons done with the various schools around school, LEH, the whole school cluster with regard to public transport coordination, and also whether there's any way of coordinating between schools with transport plans for each school? Are they all separate, or are they coordinated?
plans, and they can be quite useful tools. So I know that Hampton and NEH, for example, have joint bus arrangements, and I think Hampton recently chaired a committee meeting where we had Hampton going through its inspection, and they were talking about how their travel plan, I think it was jointly with some of their jointly with Hampton School. You can achieve some things through that plans, and there is an incentive for even schools where a significant portion is come by car to get a better standard of school travel plan with more kids to either public transport, shared coaches, or ideally cycling and walking, but that tends to be when they're within a mile or two of the school. Thank you.
Just before Ms. Davis comes in with the suggestions, one of the things which we asked for as authors with the expansion of Hampton Prep School was the idea of a financial bond, because the schools will come along with this idea of, well, we're going to be able to achieve this number of people is coming by car, this by bus, this by walk, and this by cycle, all of that. And then they come along with their figures and say, well, we fell slightly short. We've asked for substantial bonds to put in place. So if the school doesn't meet the council, then we'll keep their cash. And where the wallets go, the hearts and minds will follow. We'll see if it works.
Thank you. If you want to come back in.
I just wanted to add to that the junior schools. I think it's at the Twickenham.
Sorry, could you make your speaking?
The Twickenham school. Is it called Twickenham School? I'm not sure. At the bottom of Ormond Drive. But the parents drive park very chaotically there, and in areas that are not really safe, and it just very irritating for people walking past.
Sorry, lady, that's the question. Okay, let's move on.
Hello. Regards to the trains again, there's a nice little habit that when they want to delay a train that's coming up from Shepperton, that they will then run it fast from Teddington all the way through to Wood. It would be kind of useful if we can understand why they want to hit their target, but it would be nice to have some guaranteed stops on the way, like Wood and Clapham Junction, which would at least aid people getting into it, kidnapping and taking them to Wood. Because you can't hear what they're saying anyway.
Sorry, I'm not dominating this evening, I'll shut up at the moment. The one thing which really annoys me is when it's coming the other way. This train will terminate at Fulwell, or this train will run fast from Fulwell to Shepperton. You think, what the hell point is that? What on earth is the point of that? Really, it's just madness.
Thank you. Do we have anything? Anyone else want to do a question or make an observation or a comment in the room? Yes, thank you.
Good evening. Can you tell me how TfL buses monitor their speed limits? Because some buses travel extremely fast. Some buses keep to the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit in the area. Do TfL monitor this and give you any feedback?
Any comment on that?
I'm sure that has come up at our liaison meeting, but I will certainly make sure I raise that one in the future, because I've had complaints about buses driving at ridiculous speeds when they're driving empty back to Fulwell Garage, and that's residents on Standing Road being particularly rated like that. So they get they're empty, surprisingly. So yes, I will make a point of raising that at the next public transport liaison. I'm sure we have raised it in the past, and they've fed back to the bus drivers and the rain speaker.
Just following on the point you made, sir, we have a police liaison at Fulwell and Hampton Hill, I did actually say to the police if they wouldn't mind getting out the speed along the Stanley Road, and they have actually been doing that. And they did have been a couple of cars that were stopped because they were speeding. I'm not so sure if that's, but I can certainly speak to police liaison easy.
As you mentioned the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit, I wondered, has there been a reduction in accidents and injuries as a result of it?
Actually, the previous Transport Committee actually was looking at this, and is data to say that there has been a reduction in one speed across the bar and two in collisions, severe collisions. So we are safe to say that reducing it to 20 miles an hour has actually worked across, especially around schools. So yeah, there is data. It was released within the last couple of months to say that speeds have decreased, which has led to a decrease in collisions. But we were definitely looking at the school areas, and they have definitely decreased as well.
Is that a significant reduction?
I think any reduction personally to me is a good reduction. I think any chance that we get to prevent any children hit or anyone being hit is a reduction. So yeah, for me, I'd say it is a significant reduction.
There's also the TFL system, because there's more and more of us doing this. And there's recently, you can shake your head, it's true. There's a TFL system which is showing that in 20-mile-an-hour areas across London, collisions are down by something like about 40%, fatalities about 30%. There are good figures now available for showing that 20 miles an hour does reduce speeds, saves lives, and prevents accidents.
Have you got any information concerning the e-bike situation regarding speeding, which tend to go past most cars all the time? You've got, plus of course the line bikes, which are causing a problem, being thrown about everywhere, being used unauthorised by people, sometimes school children. There must be a reason for this somewhere, because the fact is that they're zooming past on these new electric bikes, not the line ones. If experience of it in the borough, going to 20 miles an hour, being cut up by these bikes on the pavements. They don't stop. Obviously, it's a situation which the police probably look at as well. But I mean, I think most people accept the fact that it's the electric bikes that are causing the problems. Is there any data concerning accidents involving those pedestrians and cars?
Don't have those data to hand. Unfortunately, the line bikes are limited to 15 miles an hour anyway, and that's the legal limit. What we're dealing with the ones which are whizzing past, and I agree they're limits, is that they're unlawfully modified. Often they're lawfully imported with sort of really dodgy batteries which burst into flames in the middle of the night, and there have been fatalities as a result of that. But there is legislation being passed through Parliament, I understand, regarding what we can do in order to make sure that these dangerous modified e-bikes can be taken off the road. But at the same time recognise that the importance of cycling is part of the mix, because the more cycles there are on the road, that could be fewer cars. The fewer cars there are on the road, it's easier for motorists to park when they get to their destination. It's all part of the mix that we need to be looking for. But I agree that the ones which are acting unlawfully need to be dealing with. I see Councillor as a champion here.
Yes, absolutely. I would echo that the vast majority of users of the bikes are doing so responsibly, and that overall, into the mix is a force for renewable transport mix. But also completely echo that, of course, there are some people, and it's very noticeable when it happens, but it causes quite a lot of disruption to us all, who aren't using them that responsibly. Actually, we go so far as to suggest that bikes don't need to be illegally modified to the speed limit. Those e-bikes, you can get above the speed limit on those. And I was at Councillor Surgery recently, was brought up, and there was a lot of people concerned, and I actually spoke to a gentleman who unfortunately had been knocked off seat by a young person riding an e-bike. And speaking to the police recently, I know that it's something they're paying a lot of attention. So in the wards that we have represented here, we are speaking safer neighbourhood teams, and asking them to keep an eye out on some of the sort of hot spots where some of that type of view tends to happen. And they have actually been catching and finding people in our borough, I believe, for that kind of behaviour.
I would just quickly add about around e-bikes and line bikes. That is, like we said previously, we do have a conversation with line bike regarding what more they can do to put in their systems to make sure that they are being parked legally, safely, and not just abandoned. I know that there is a wider London Council, which London Council is part of, looking at different rules that we can put to make it so you can either park from the house or go bay to bay to try and reduce some of the cluttering. Make sure that in some areas you can only park in a bay, so around train stations or high streets. So we are working with the providers to try and make sure we cut back on the bad use of line bikes, but not completely cut them out. We realise they are vitally important ways of getting around, especially late at night, etc. If you go into the train station, they are easily accessible. So we want to try and keep them in the bar, but making sure they are wanted in use, etc. Thank you.
Just one moment. The lady
Thank you. I have some sympathy with children riding on vehicles, but I have no sympathy with adults. I've been very nearly had my nose taken off with people cycling very fast on pavements. We need some kind of campaign to point out that it is actually illegal.
one more comment. Gentleman there.
The line bikes are a real hazard and menace. 3 Sundays ago, I drove out from my house in Hampton Hill, and within 1 mile of my house there were over 10 line bikes just dumped anywhere. Blocking pavements, on the road, all sorts. They're a real hazard. Anybody who's got a side problem will trip, fall over, it's a right mess. Also, the SL7 will be made to stop more often. Oh, I was only one stop in the whole borough. It's ridiculous. I was once attending a reception, and I got them intending thinking it must stop somewhere near my house. I got off at Hampton for about midnight. I was livid.
Yeah. One other question regarding the trains. Surely there was thoughts aged at Hampton Hill station, and that never seemed to get anywhere. Surely that could be brought in, and that would lead to the problem. And as you say, direct service to Richmond would be much better.
Thank you. I think I can respond to some of these things. Children are not allowed to cycle on the pavements. I forget the precise age where it's acceptable and it's not. And I think it depends on whether it's a police officer enforcing it or a police characters. And there's a contentious issue as to what age you enforce that. I think it's often, yes, the police do wind up prosecuting people for cycling on the pavements, and we need more of that enforcement. When it comes to the SL stopping not having stopped between Central Teddington and Hampton Cross, I have raised this in the past and for an SL7 when it was the stop in Hampton Hill, and the response I got from the bus operators was that we already have a bus service to Heathrow. Everyone on the SL7 route wants additional stops, and Councillor, you've already got a bus that goes through Hampton and Heathrow, which is sort of an argument. Now I think it's the bigger argument on this is that everyone within a 10-minute walk of the Hogarth now has resident parking because it is a park and ride for Heathrow. And I'm not sure I would push for the SL7 to stop in Hampton Hill these days, because if it does, you turn Hampton Hill into a park and ride airport. And I think we need to think fairly carefully about it was not finished, it's kind of, I've tried before. So I will be cautious about trying for that again. When it comes to the station in Hampton Hill, yes, one of the longest gaps in the borough is between Hampton Station and Fulwell Station. And we have raised this issue. I actually had a chat with one of the government ministers, Lord Henty, a few days ago on this very thing. And he basically said, if you've got the investment for that, it's a few million or a major residential development. I'm not sure necessarily want the sort of major residential development that would get us a station. But once the St. Clair's thing has got to the point where I don't think they can change it and add a few stories, then I'll push for that one again. Because yes, it's a very long gap in the road, and an additional railway station at Hampton Hill will be really useful for it. We've got the distance. I think the technology is such that they can put money in that cutting. It costs money, and the residents further onto Hampton and Chapter will be saying, well, it's going to delay the train service for them by having another minute, having another stop as well. But yeah, I have not given up on that.
Thank you. I think we have to move on now to our next section. So this is on community safety. I'll ask Councillor Introductions to introduce it.
The Richmond Council has made it safe as a priority of our present corporate plan and the present Richmond Community Safety Partnership Plan. We have often been the safest London borough. Around Richmond upon Thames borough, over the last 12 months, there were 12,228 reported crimes. This, unfortunately, is a 3.1% increase from the previous 12 months. However, the offences per 1,000 population is currently the lowest in London. The top crime types across the borough are theft, violence against the person, vehicle offences and burglary. I am pleased to say that the local ward figures for crime have actually decreased in the previous 12 months. So that's Fulwell, Hampton Hill, Hampton North and Hampton. The 4 crime types in Hampton are violence against the person, theft, arson, criminal damage and burglary. In Hampton North, it's violence against the person, theft, vehicle offences and burglary. And Fulwell and Hampton Hill, it's violence against the person, theft, drug offences and vehicle offences. Richmond upon Thames sits in the 4 borough command unit with Wandsworth, Hampton and Kingston boroughs. And the borough commander is Claire Helland. Each ward has a safe neighbourhood team made up of a sergeant, 2 police constables and 1 community safety officer. The teams arrange local police liaison meetings in their ward about 3 times a year, and residents are encouraged to attend these and discuss issues they have. The current sergeant for Fulwell and Hampton Hill is Sergeant Jason Johnson, and the current sergeant for Hampton North and Hampton is Sergeant Paul Rogers, you may know. And the borough has 2 inspectors. The one that covers the side is Inspector John McGough. And recently, a new online forum has been started called Let's Engage, and residents are encouraged to sign up to Engage and learn about their local area, crime updates, and any news or safety advice. Now, crime prevention phoning about one of your relatives. And as soon as my husband says, oh, this is a scam, they put a phone. Anyway, the important thing to remember is that Richmond upon Thames is consistently one of the safest boroughs in London. Crime and antisocial behaviour. And as I've got this opportunity, I would like to thank the local police personnel for their work in our area. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Quick question, violence against the person. Is that broken down by gender? Is it broken down by location of that violence? And so can you share that data?
As I don't know the answer to that question, I don't think it is broken down by gender.
It's a good question. I know that on the Metropolitan Police's website you can go on and you can find the dashboards for the latest statistics for your particular ward. And in one of the various crimes, I think it actually might have by gender and by age. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But it's wrong because what we often hear, and it's a pernicious thing that we have locally, is that people are scared of crime. Even though it's sort of logical because we are one of the safest wards and the safest borough and the safest BC in London. But still there is that fear of crime, which keeps people at home, which makes people feel unsafe in their neighbourhood. And it's really difficult to crack people's head. But that's why we try and make sure that the police have got regular visibility within the ward. It's why they sometimes you'll see the cough thing. The problem is, I've not seen the policeman walking down a police person. I've not seen a member of the police force walking down my street for ever such a long time. Well, nobody stands by there, behind their curtains 24/7 looking. They are there, but it's just the fact that our numbers have gone down dramatically in the last, I was first elected. When I was first elected, every single ward in this borough had its own sergeant. 18 sergeants in total. I think they're now about 7 across the entire borough. And of course, all of the local board teams have shrunk accordingly. So that's the problem, is numbers.
Key. Here.
Hello. It's interesting when you talk about violence against women and girls because I've reported this and I'm actually a victim of harassment. And I need information that has been denied to me in various ways, which you have and you have been asked to provide to the police for Crown prosecution and which you have personally denied. So if we are going to be talking about reporting statistics, then I suggest perhaps giving people access to information which is held by the local council and is needed actions in court to be given to people when they ask it in the first place, which in my case was 6 months ago, and I am still requesting the access to information that belongs to me in order to prove what I need in court, which was violence against me and my children, including my daughter. When, please, can you guarantee that we get access to the information we need, statistics to reflect the reality? Thank you.
Well, I'm pleased that some of it was issue, because obviously I don't wish to go into individual case details. However, as you've raised it, you have had a response on several occasions from the council's head of IT and data. They've told you that you do not have the stuff they were looking for.
No,
and there is absolutely no reason why they would hang on to it. So I really don't think that this is the forum for such a discussion. You've had a response on several occasions.
that is not true.
Lazy over there.
Sorry, did you want to? Sorry, Councillor Carter.
The previous gentleman asked about the violence against the person. We have these police liaison group meetings which these councils go on to. They're primarily for English members of the public. The one in Fulwell and Hampton Hill was at the Greenwood Centre about 10 days ago. and the police gave figures then that the violence against the person in the ward, which is the ward of about 7,500 adults, dropped from 51 last year to 36. But they didn't break that down by gender. Whether it was broken down at a wider level, I think the leaders mentioned. But Fulwell and Hampton Hill used to have the lowest crime level of any ward in this borough. This borough is usually the lowest in London. At the last boundary change, the Electoral Commission, literally after an email from me, gave us, I wanted a particular footpath added, on the basis of my request that they give us the footpath. They gave us that footpath, the golf course next to it, another golf course beyond, and the David Lloyd Centre with its car park. On the basis of crime levels in the David Lloyd Centre car park, Fulwell and Hampton Hill is no longer the lowest crime ward in the lowest crime borough. But we're not far short of it. And our police have been working with the David Lloyd to try and reduce that crime. But this is, it's not just that this borough has a crime level below or under average, it's a crime level below the national average. And this is the end of the borough with a relatively low level of crime. The good thing about my accidentally using this, our status lowest crime level of any ward in the borough, is that we no longer have a ward police team that tends to count of one person who's actually leave and another one who's on late. So speaking normal for what is now a ward police team. Thank you.
So just following on from Councillor Carter's point about PLG, the police actually mentioned that the Met Statistics has completely changed its system, and right now they can't get accurate statistics. So right now it's only a number, so they won't be able to get gender or anything else like that. That is only interim while they get used to the system. So in a way, they're not looking just yet. And also drug offences, because that seems massive. Can I just point out that actually isn't the case in Hampton Hill? Please don't think there are streets on a daily basis. This is actually packages that are being sent from abroad to get to here, but they're getting stopped at border posts. But because they're being sent to Hampton Hill, they're classed as drug offences within Hampton. So please don't think we've got massive increases of drugs, because we haven't.
I just want to say that I've seen the open sale of drugs across the road from my house, and I don't know what to do when I see it. I spoke to them last time. I said I can see what you're doing, and I'd be afraid to report it because they don't know where I live. But it's twice, once in the daylight and once on the same place, and it's from the back of a scooter, and it's the same guy that's being sold to. I just don't know what to do with it.
Sorry, police and crime was also my remit, and I should have said earlier that I'm also under the Assembly member and I sit on the police and crime committee. I was not chair last year. Reporting through crime stoppers. Report anything you like through crime stoppers anonymously, and they will deal with it. And what we need is for people to report things like that so that the police can build a picture of what's happening in the local area, and then if they get enough reports about a specific location of the individual, they can target resources to trying to deal with that location or that person. Unless they know, they can't do it. But as I say, if you're concerned about being identified, crime stoppers do it anonymously. You want to do it by all means, and you don't want to sit up on their one for about half an hour. You can report things through the Metropolitan Police website as well.
Thank you. Do we have anything online? Comments or questions? If that's nothing else, then I'll move on to the next theme, which is supporting local businesses. I'm going to ask Councillor Introductions.
Thank you, Chair. So our third theme, supporting local businesses. Well, I think we all agree we want to live in an area that has a thriving ecosystem of shops, services and leisure facilities. I expect quite a lot of you would agree with my position that that's particularly attractive when a lot of those local businesses are also locally owned. I personally feel like I'm happier when I'm putting my wages into the pocket of somebody in their local area and that money is going to be staying in the local Qatar or wherever. So, lots of positives there to move for. It's also good for our health to be able to get to most of the services we need on a daily basis within 15 or 20 minutes, walking, cycling, or a quick bus journey. And research shows as well that those who do are more likely to spend more in our local shops. So all these issues we're talking about tonight are all linked, of course. And this is a subject very dear to the council. It's a real priority for lots of different teams within the council, particularly the Economic Development Office, where there are some wonderful people, Max and so on, who work hard with the local businesses, attending to traders associations. We're working with our Hampton Hill Town Centre, Georgia, who has spoken out already tonight. Do you know your hand up, Georgia? And by promoting the services of the local businesses to all of us. The Council's Economic Development Office distributes town centre grants, Christmas grants, in Fulwell, Hampton, Hampton Hill to the north. And that helps to pay for events like the Christmas parade and Christmas tree decorations, that sort of thing. Council also contributes monies towards the improvement of the environment that we see in, say, nicer benches, planters, flags that we've got at the moment. All of these sorts of improvements help to encourage footfall in our shopping centres, of course. And Council works to promote businesses in an annual shop local directory, which is distributed in printed hard copy to all residents, as well as available online. And of course the Council's webpage, email newsletters, app and so on also promote local businesses. So there's plenty that Council can do. Council doesn't, of course, have complete control over what businesses move in and out of the local area. So we can't always make promises about the profile of businesses that we're going to see. We are always open to hearing your thoughts on what you would like to see in the local area, ideas for how Council can better promote the interests of businesses or remove barriers that are perhaps stopping them thriving where we would like to see. So, opening the floor really to all of you for any observations or questions you might have.
Thank you, Councillor Wren. Before we open up for questions or comments on that particular theme, was there, if I might, someone who was trying to come in on the last theme?
My question is if the parcel has been cut open and stolen in a residential area, I mean in the block, and that is belong to safe. So it's a report to the police or?
I mean, yes, you should. This happens all over the place, unfortunately, not just within the box, but we see Amazon or DHL, they will deliver, they'll just sling parcels out right in the full view of the street. No attempts to hide it whatsoever. And then somebody will just come along and steal it and rip it over, and if they don't find it, they will throw it away. So yes, do report it to the police, but of course also make sure that you report it to the courier companies as well, because you should be getting a refund for their poor service.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, I missed you. Okay, we're now going to open up for comments and questions on supporting local business.
Hi. Is there anything you can do about empty shops? We've got a few empty shops near our house and it's been empty. I wondered if there's anything the council can do to make the use of shop.
Thank you. I chair the planning committee, and one of the things that we do is this, I suppose it's a managed applying with, I would bet that the majority of people in this room do some of our, their via the internet, and there's been this shift away from retail spend on the street for many years. So we're doing something of a managed applying in terms of planning. remember the Dickens and Jones used to be in the centre of Richmond. I forget the precise details now, but I think it's 2 stories of that are going for office space and 1 story for a restaurant. The ground floor is remaining as retail or restaurant space. So one part of what we're doing is managed. That does mean there are some shops empty in some places, and some shop owners who would like to turn more of the shops into residential use. And if it wasn't for the planning process, I suspect an awful lot of the shops that add interest and life to our high street, etc., would go, because the typical shop is worth about £500,000 as a flat. There is a problem with in some particular areas with the amount of empty shops. Hopefully not in Hampton, where George has been promoting that. Colin, whichever of your ward councillors is after this, unless you can be specific as to which high street we're talking about.
Thank you.
Yeah, can I just comment to that? I mean, yes, it is managed decline, because until there's a reform of business rates, we will not solve the issue of high street retail businesses. So it's part of a much wider debate around reforming business rates.
Okay. Absolutely. But that's beyond those local councillors. But yes, the current situation where the high street pays more per square metre than the out-of-town shopping centre, it's a long-standing scandal which is unfortunately been resolved as part of the coalition government. But it's one of those things that does need resolving, and but it's beyond our pay grade as local council.
Thank you. Yes.
I'd just like to understand the blending or otherwise that's applied to High Street. I live in Hampton. There may get the numbers wrong, 6 to 7 nail bars amongst a total of 40 shops, max. So I wonder how the blend works then. If you then add the physios on that, you probably find another 3 or 4. So the ability to anybody to actually start a different type of shop, and whether they would have enough shops that would be attractive to them and therefore get footfall and therefore get custom, is very dubious to me. So could you explain how you're planning to more types of certain elements of shops and others, and what your controls are?
Good point. So unfortunately, the last government relaxed the rules about converting between different types of shops. So there's now greater flexibility of that. Specifically when it comes to nail bars, there is a licensing issue, and there's also issues about the fumes bars. And I can admit to actually sitting on one licensing specifically about nail bar, when there is issues of getting the fumes resolved there. But the powers we have as a council are to regulate, minimise certain forms of damage, which some neighbours were certainly experiencing the one where I sat on the licensing. We have relatively little flexibility to plan between whether it's a privately owned, whether it's an independent shop or it's part of a chain, and there are all the usages that we have some control of, particularly when it's the daytime versus the nighttime. There's some control around that. But whether it's going to be a bookshop or a supermarket, or we don't often have that much control there. The building that's now become Waitrose, because it was very close to the traffic lights. When I spoke against that particular development before we knew it was very close. I spoke about a few years ago when I was trying to save the greenways that used to be there. And I lost the land battle, but I did get a condition that whoever went to that space had to get their delivery arrangements agreed with the council, because obviously that close to that junction, that was a reason to go on to that. And it's that sort of thing that we can do, where there's a retailer who's going to need substantial deliveries. We can have some control of the resources there. But so prescriptive as to whether it's a hammock sales shop or a violin or a corner shop, we've got rental control over that. Licensing the alcohol, I think something we can do. Ready to ensure that now.
Thank you. Anyone else? So have we got any questions online? Yes. Thank you. If there's no more questions, sorry.
Could I just make one point, please, Chair? We have had some very good shop locals. In Fulwell and Hampton Hill, we've had them both in the Tennington part of the ward and the Hampton Hill part of the ward. And I think we've been very successful at persuading more people to shop locally. And the last time I spoke to officers in the Development Department, I did ask if we could do another one. And obviously, the budget, but obviously, that's something we should try and get more of, definitely.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to bring that session to a close, and it's time for an open session. So, any issues or comments that you want to put to the councillors, now's your opportunity.
Two different topics, and I apologise for that. But the first topic, I'd just like to thank Council, praise the Council for keeping open our libraries and leisure facilities. When so many other councils are having to restrict opening hours or totally close, I think it is admirable, grateful to the Council for allowing me and others to continue to conveniently visit a library and borrow a book, and to conveniently visit a swimming pool or other physical activity centre. Thank you. The main thing I want to raise, though, and I apologise in advance for doing this, Thames Water and Upper Bury Road. Two questions I have about it. I know that you have worked hard on the traffic arrangements, and I know that you have, Gareth in particular, you've been very active online in answering questions and discussion. I have not seen anything about the use of Lower Sunbury Road, so I don't know, I'm curious as to what's happening there. Secondly, I'm also curious as to whether you have any information about the actual number of incidents that Thames Water claims with vehicles going into that little bit of water. I use the road reasonably regularly, neighbours who use the road reasonably regularly. None of us have ever seen a vehicle in the water, and we have never seen a gap in the fence that would indicate something has gone through. Is it the case that this is an anti-vehicle in water barrier, or is it something else? And if it is the former, what are the actual statistics for vehicles in the water?
Okay, before I launch into this, probably easiest to put hands on the people who aren't aware of Thames Water's plans for July to October. Oh, gracious. Okay, for those of you who aren't aware, between July the close one half of the A308, the carriageway which borders the Thames Waterworks, in order to replace the vehicle barrier fence across there. It's going to cause an enormous amount of upset, displacement of traffic, all of that. Be ready, because it's coming. Question one, is it necessary? I mean, Thames Water are going to spend £2.1 million on this fence, and I would suggest that a business in its current condition would not be spending that amount of money if they and the water regulator didn't think it was necessary. Vehicles which have been in there in the past, relatively small to be honest. However, the number of ones which we've got in the past is not the indicator that they're looking at. It's the ones which might go in the future. And without wishing to give ideas to maniacs, if you knock out the water supply from Thames Water in that area, you knock out the water supply from most of South London. And there was the time where we didn't see vehicles entering football parades. There was the time where we didn't see vans entering Christmas markets. The world has changed, vehicles are being weaponised. So ones which may have come in accidentally in the past, that's not where they're concerned. They're concerned about deliberate incursions from large vehicles. That's where the problem lies. The Lower Sunbury Road, keep it to yourself. The diversions are not going via the Lower Sunbury Road, so that's possibly one of your easy routes out of Hampton. The reason why they're going up Hampton High Street, then going across Uxbridge Road and then joining the A316, is that vehicles, I don't know if it's a legal compliance, but it's a usual compliance issue that if you want to take vehicles off an A road, you have to divert them around A roads. And the Lower Sunbury roads are roads off not all A roads. I know it's meant I share your pain. I live in Mercer Road. I'm going to get this thing both barrels, I'll tell you. But yeah, so that's the reason why the Lower Sunbury road is talked about. Of course, you can still go down the Lower Sunbury roads as an alternative route. Nobody's disclosing that at all, so you can use that. Was there anything else? Oh, there we go.
Numbers provided by Thames Water was 1. Since 2005, 1 car has gone into the reservoir since 2005 Valley, and all they say is 7 cars have gone into the valley. I'm given numbers exactly, but that's the information from Thames Water.
Did that answer all of your questions that you raised?
Thank you.
But thank you very much for your comments about leisure as well. We're hoping to, we're launching a leisure contract, which we see is actually going to improve some of the services. Now, in Poolside Park and attending to the pool, that's going to take a few years for that to percolate through, but we're hoping that that's going to give some real benefits to residents.
And that comes tomorrow night at the...
Tonight, to the Environment Committee, tune in to.
There's a question here.
Thank you. There's actually a meeting with Thames Water at Hampton on the 24th, which is a long session. I think my question is more to do with that entire land is actually going to be sold by Thames Water, and it's actually not greenbelt land. It's been manipulated to look like greenbelt for many, many years, and Thames Water are looking to sell that for various different development projects, and has been included in the local plan as being done but not actually shared information regards to this, I think, to anybody. But you can see quite a bit online on Facebook which sections they're looking to sell. And my question to you is this fence and barrier actually part of a broader plan and it just being disguised to look like it's a barrier to prevent cars from falling in?
2 points, if I may. Firstly, it's the 25th and not the 24th. And secondly, it would be a bizarre decision by any holder who is wishing to sell off land to spend £2.1 million creating a fence around it. Surely that is not a business decision. I have seen no evidence whatsoever that Thames Water wishes to sell this land. I understand that you've been asked to provide your evidence and it has not been forthcoming. So I think that it is not helpful or bizarre rumours and speculation to be promulgated.
It's a plan submitted by Thames Water that they're wanting to sell this. Why
there are things within the land where they are site designations if such time as it is surplus to requirements. The water regulators will not allow this to be sold, in my view. If you have evidence to the contrary, then please do share it, because I would be delighted to see it.
When?
However, You've been asked on several occasions on social media when you've...
That's not true at all. Why are you lying?
Let's move on. Yes, sorry. If you could take this question first and then the lady.
I'm just wondering how building regulations are decided where their application to perhaps alter a family bungalow and convert it into a two-storey house of multiple occupancy. In a small cul-de-sac in Hampton North, there's only perhaps a few parking spaces for those residents already there. How can, well, I just want to know how decisions are made really about houses of multiple occupancy. I know that one decision has gone against, which is good from the point of view of local residents there. But residents have, my friend in particular has said that she's heard sounds of knocking and banging and obviously building still going on inside. So I just wonder how building regs are decided.
I'm hoping to get back to you also with your neighbours with more information on HMOs in the I'm just waiting for a further response from officers before I do so. As regards the planning situation, as you know, with that particular house, it was turned from a bungalow into a two-storey house many years ago, I think 50 years ago, or thereabouts. I think that is no longer relevant. I agree it looks a mess, but there's not a lot we can do about that now. As you probably also know, to turn a house into an HMO for 6 people or fewer does not require planning permission. To be a landlord of an HMO, you do need to apply, and there's licensing a separate process for that. That's what I'm trying to find out more information on at the moment, so I hope I'll be able to give you an easily comprehensible answer fairly soon.
Thank you. You're right at the back.
Back to the water issue.
Yes.
Did I hear right that you said that they're going to do a diversion using Uxbridge Road? That is a horrendous road. It's 20 miles an hour. I ride it every day. And every day I nearly push off the road. I wish to go faster and make me feel guilty for only doing 20. Now, the people coming past where the railings are along the Upper Sunbury Road can go 30 miles an hour. I don't see them slowing down when they come up Uxbridge Road, and it's going to be even more dangerous. And that's going to be for 6 months or so.
Well, 3 months. I appreciate that splitting it. But 20 miles an hour is the limit for that particular road. And well, one of the reasons why it was included in the original study was the original implementation. There's a elusive trust which people reverse off out of that road. That's why it was kept in. However, I mean, it's always one of those difficult ones. Decent law writing people have people to break the law behind them. But just because some people want to break the law, it doesn't necessarily mean that the law is wrong. We have laws to go shop. Does it mean necessarily that laws are right? No, it doesn't. That people should just try to be decent about how they're doing it. And I'm sorry that you're getting chipped off people who are not driving nice.
Just to follow up on that one, perhaps we could police to do a few more camera checks or just be advertising a bit more in that area.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing, of course, is there's going to be more traffic going along that road. So the idea that they're all going to be able to thump along at anything above 50 miles an hour is happens simply because of traffic, unfortunately.
I live on the diversion in Hampton High Street. What I haven't seen is any indication of exactly how the buses are going to run.
That's going to be part of the detail which will be available on the website, Council's website, and on the drop-in session on the 25th. At the moment, the 111 should remain unchanged. All of the other buses should remain unchanged. It's the 216, and that's what I'm trying to get details on about whether it's going to have to go all that way around the house. But that will be allowed us to divert down some of the road, which we think far more sense than just go straight to the avenue and bang. Unfortunately, I don't know. It's rather than that's all the time we will see the market. But yeah, as soon as I as soon as I got that, I will throw that straight up onto the various Facebook pages and of course. You need to get that information out there. And it will be on the council newsletter as well. If you get signed up for the council newsletter, please do come straight into your email box and we'll give you all the information you need like the local area. Community
Just a suggestion, one of the problems in Hampton is that the roads get very busy when there's a diversion. They're very small, we get ambulances, fire engines down. At the best of times, surely help won't be able to get them down Tudor Road, Milton Road, etc., etc. Is anybody going to speak to Google, Big Corp, or whoever provides their mapping data? Because obviously, it will be the diversions, the things that they routed people around, as opposed to the roads of Hampton, which is what will actually happen, because they always do.
Yeah, I'm given to understand that is part and parcel of what happens by default these days, and we will even be featuring, I'm given to understand, on the Radio 2 savvy traffic updates, because it is going to be such an enormous impact on traffic in this part of the world that it needs to be as market dispersed as possible in terms of information.
I was just going to raise the point of by swimming pool and JP Motors. When I was driving down there earlier, when you reach a bus coming in opposite direction, all traffic goes to standstill because it's quite narrow where the cars parked either side. Is there anything the council can do to alleviate that, maybe parking just one side whilst the works go on? Because I feel like it could take on a massive knock-on effect. High Street, we get traffic and there's problems down by the pool that comes all the way down Hampton Hill, so that kind of thing. And also, technically, everybody, traffic starts in July for the power show.
It's something that can certainly do. I can't guarantee, but I need to finish. If you drop us an email, then we can pass it on to the relevant.
I'm not sure if I've missed it. I can't really hear a lot of what's going on. I'm watching these ladies. I got a letter today from, and it's about a thing that Thames Water are doing to help. I just thought, has that been mentioned? If I've missed it, I'm sorry, but I just thought there's a letter that candidate said you could go along and they'll tell you all about the thing. I mean, you might have mentioned it, but I can't, it was here, sorry.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, I'll read it out mindful, because that'd be terribly dull. Wednesday the 25th of June 2025, from 4 till 7 p.m, Hampton Library at Rosehill, Hampton, TW12-2AB. It's going to be a drop-in session. Our team will discuss the project in detail, including the scope of work and timeline. Take it out, I'm reading this. It's 2 personal lessons. Your input and feedback are invaluable to us. We want to ensure that you're well informed and involved throughout the process. That's what's going to happen 4 till 7, the 25th at Hampton Library. Come along, ask some questions, wave a finger if you must. But they'll tell you everything that you need to know about this. Does that help?
No, it's just that I wanted to raise the issue that I got letter to, because everyone know about it.
Yes,
and I just thought, how do I miss that? Because I know we've got this letter today. And I thought, that's not, sorry.
That's not very long before it starts.
No, it's one of those tricky
Not a timeline, is it?
It's one of those tricky things that if you send a letter out too early, people forget. And that tends to have about the sweet spot for sending that letter out. And of course, it will be, you can share it on social medias. Street WhatsApps are very good these days for spreading that sort of vital thing, because it pings on your phone, it doesn't rely on you. So, as many, if you've got a street WhatsApp, share the details of that project, because it will be vital.
Thank you. Yes.
Hello, just two things. One very quickly, because I know the answer to this. The gentleman on the other side who also lives in Hampton mentioned about the congestion. I don't know whether there's another bridge being put in on the M25 and the A3. At the same time as all these works, I don't know whether anybody, I haven't looked on the website, when I go down that way, I look to make sure that was an absolute pain, with unbelievable total number of people blocked all the way around the station who had come so many distance from Guildford, from all the way down there, who were asking, how do I get out of here, basically. But that was just one comment. My other one was another building one. I noticed you've got a lovely glossy brochure, leaflet about the Whitton Community Centre, where I have had some wonderful COVID jabs there. They have been absolutely outstanding. But as my mother is disabled, I do have to take her in my car in a wheelchair. My concern is that it says it's designed with accessibility in mind, but with current parking already an issue, how will 36 new residences be catered for with visitors to the centre arriving like us, by car, who need to use their private transport because of disability or the lack of accessible public transport near their home, Whitton Community Centre? That's my concern.
Okay, the second part I don't have a direct answer for you. We will what we do is to make as much social and affordable housing as we possibly can. There will be dedicated parking available, I'm going to understand, for the Whitton Community Centre as there is at the moment. And of course that will not be able to be used by residents for their personal use. Unless I suppose it's 3 o'clock in the morning, that would be it. But we will make sure that those residents are fully aware that when they purchase their flats, or if they rent them from a social house, that they know that there is no on-site parking available, and that they will have to stay with everybody else. But the dedicated parking for the community centre, particularly for those with disabilities, will be ready.
Thank you. Anyone else want to? Yes. Oh, sorry. Could Councillor
About the community centre transport to the centres, this is becoming a real problem, say, in Linden Hall, and it's actually being discussed amongst the trustees and the council officers at the moment to try and make sure there is more transport so that people can't get to the community centres on their own to actually have a chance.
Right.
Yeah, sorry, what I was talking about community centres, the LOA Hall one is soon coming up, I believe. Do we know what the parking situation there is going to be?
I have no idea, but there is a quite substantial car park space just behind Tesco.
The Tesco's one, yeah. I was worried about because I work at the Greenwood Centre with the rag buses. What's the situation outside?
I don't have the answer to that. Drop me an email and I'll get back to you. But that will have been factored in. I'm absolutely sure. Well, actually, Jonathan's there. He may be able to tell us.
I wasn't going to answer on that. I'm not going to answer on that one. But in addition to the last lady's comments about taking her mother to Whitton Centre, if you haven't already got a big badge, I suggest you
only when there are enough disabled parking places. I think there are only about 3 possibly.
Sorry, can I just...
The microphone will come to you from motor.
Yeah, I would echo that with the blue badges. As a voluntary driver for Hampton and Hill Association, based at the Greenwood Centre, blue badges are essential. The only problem we have is something like Teddington Hospital, for example, where there's only 2 bays. So,
yeah, the blue badge just allows you to park pretty much carte blanche with reason on yellow lines and what have you. So you can use it. You don't have to park a disabled parking bay if you have a blue badge. It affords far greater flexibility.
Sorry, maybe it was just something.
Yes, I do know we have had a blue badge for quite a number of years with my mother and previously with my father. Yes, we know that we can park on certain other places, yellow lines, etc. But it doesn't actually help when you've got to get a wheelchair out and you're on a major road with a bus route that occasionally goes past Wisdom Centre. Occasionally. Down out of the lane.
Just back onto the gentleman's point about Elevate Hall, we've been working very closely with the Elevate Community Association, and I would be astonished if they wouldn't have raised the issue of bus parking right outside the new hall. And yes, they've been assiduous in making sure that the facilities which they had in the old hall are being replaced in the new hall.
Just to link a couple of the questions we've had. The first one was about extra traffic coming from Thames Waterworks. Going back to my earlier point about school travel and particularly site provision for kids going to and from the schools in Hampton. There is no cycling infrastructure anywhere near that Hampton schools cluster. And we know what those roads are like. And because those roads are like that, nobody wants to cycle. So it's a self-perpetuating catch-22 situation where nobody wants to cycle because the roads are dangerous. The only way that we can start to look at getting a coordinated cycle network for that school cluster to reduce the traffic, which then eases it for other road users and particularly the school buses and
we have, the council did recently meet Richard's transport lead around those sites, and what you I'd like to do is open up the road for cyclists and then connect it through to the safe possible approach to connect through St. Nick to Burton to go down to the same cyclists. So yes, we agree that it totally needs addressing, and as always, connectivity is a key issue, but I think there's great scope there to improve routes, sites, and the proximity of schools is that great urgency. However, it doesn't, there are some barriers to implementing it, which I don't fully understand, but yes, it's something that we discuss very, very
I'm spoken on the school front, and I know that Hampton Hill is very interested in the site that joins onto Carlisle, which would then impact that school road massively again. Is there an update on that?
I don't want to be always chosen as cutting on. It's a money thing more than anything else. We need to have the funding from the Department of Education in order to provide that insight. I think it is absolutely the right thing to do. But unfortunately, unless the TFE are going to press up the cash, then it's unlikely to happen, which is a shame, because having Carlisle and Hampton juniors rather together makes them enormous money.
Come back.
Sorry.
Yeah, George, I'm on the Education Committee. I can raise this with officers, or I can raise this at Education Committee under any other business, okay?
Did you want to have a button?
Yeah, I can just follow up. That obviously is going to be a lot longer plan, sort of money, etc. But in the interim, is there any way that school fields can be given to Carlisle? Because right now they have to keep getting permission if they wish to use it, and it's a long-winded process which seems necessary when the ground and space is given to educational use.
There are various suggestions being put forward for that site. I sit on the chair, the Education Property Board, and the point we make in time and time again is whatever happens with that site, we need to make sure that there is adequate provision for green space to be given over to Carlisle. Because at the moment they have insufficient of that, and they use it for all sorts of things like school campovers and school space and all of that. So probably it might not be unlikely to be all of it, but a substantial portion in order for the Carlisle and the school to have its adequate space. I've been involved many times on this, and my years of life.
I have another question, but I don't know if for your Hampton Way. The thing is, for the Richmond Council website, there's a switchboard number, but I called today, it's not working. And because I tried to report my error, there's rubbish that needed to be collected, but no one collected.
Oh, okay. The switchboard should be working, and they should have taken your report. Again, if it's a persistent problem, contact your board to say it's Hampton Week.
There's any alternative, like another number. I called because I looked at the council website, and then there's one, I called one building city, that number, and then I've been told off. I called one department, and then but the other one is for rubbish collection, waste and recycling. It's not working. I keep calling for 1 hour and no answer, and then say,
If you call the main switchboard, which is on the council website, call that number and report through there, and you can be able to report through to our customer team that you've had a miscollection. So don't go straight through to waste and recycling. It's obviously not working for some reason. Call the main switchboard, they'll look after you, and hopefully you can get that issue resolved.
it's an answer machine, and there's no human.
The main switchboard will not be an answer machine, unless you're calling it something, as I say, about 3 o'clock in the morning.
No, it's just this afternoon, 2 o'clock.
Oh, no, actually, give them another call tomorrow when you get home, and tell them you spoke to me. I think Gareth comments, and I asked you to call them back.
While we're talking about waste and recycling and things like fly tipping, I mean, I appreciate the guys go around every morning and clear all the stuff at the top of Fulwell and Changes, Hampton Hill. They have to do it every morning because people do house clearances and done all sorts of stuff there. What's the situation regarding coverage of those sites? Presumably it happens in the rest of the borough as well with CCTV. Have you got any data as to how many prosecutions you've made in this respect?
Thank you for raising that. So we have a mobile CCTV program. We have try and enforce catching fly tippers in various ways. The most effective way is that there's a volunteer at the depot who puts on a whole load of protective gear and goes through fly tipping material, and very often finds personal data so that they can actually track it back to the source of fly tipping. Obviously, that only got put on for the whole of the COVID thing, but that's back in operation. We do seem to prosecute at least one person a year. We're also doing these measures which some of you may have heard of, and they're targeted areas where reciprocal arrangement with the London Borough Council and some other boroughs. So if you can drive into Kew is inconvenient, you can drive to Fulham Space while you're there. So there's a number of things we're doing to try and identify everything. And this is one of the boroughs where we've kept to weekly collections, which is an important thing of trying to minimise the amount of collecting that takes place, and we're into that for the foreseeable future, because it's an important part of trying to control flighting, and it is an ongoing battle, and thank you for your persistence about pulling the road. It's not the only spot that keeps being hit by flighters, and we do need to catch them. Thank you.
Just add to that, we have a very school with the recycle area. And councillors, there is CCTV there, and I was told that councillors were planning to receive 43 external notices during the month of last year, and we now have a solicitor in place whose job it is to watch CCTV. And we're able to identify vehicles associated with the residents and this new FPN. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to alleviate the flight of these yet, but I don't think issuing large fines to people is always a good idea, but I hope that people will start to get invested. It's something that might part of the area to talk about.
Yes.
I'm glad to hear from the councillor that weekly connections will still be going on. I think that's very important. My concern is the day after, usually the day after connection, when there's still quite a lot of rubbish on the street, because those who are kindly picking it up, because that is a wonderful job that they do. I would like to do it, and I do appreciate what our bin collectors do. But there is still quite a lot of rubbish that's left on the street. It's not what to do with the urban boxes. But the day after, there's usually somebody who walks around the pavements with a leaf blower and blows everything from the pavement onto the road. The thing is, when people have driveways that have had pebbles in, then the chippings, shall we say, they get blown onto the road. Now, I think there's supposed to be more equipment that came along the road to actually clean up, but when I've been on my bike on several occasions, there's no chance of dodging these quite large, well, I can just say pebbles, shingle, and that's hazardous if you're on a bike, especially a 50-year-old bike like mine.
Could I ask which roads you're specifically talking about this? Because we do have inspectors who are checking that the collectors are.
There's Linden Road and Bloxham Crescent around that way.
So, if I may ask one of the Hampton councillors here, if that's possible, to observe additional techniques.
Isn't that nice?
Yes, I will take that one tonight. I'll put an email to make sure that actually that this week's collection, they can just do a check to make sure that the bins are being collected correctly, etc. So yeah, I'll do that this week.
The hot news, if I may just a little bit of question, is that we're monitoring the fact is we're paying them now extra, so that when they're going around, they start sweeping up after themselves if they lose a few bits. So that's new. I don't think that the new contract is going to force yet. And as always, it will take a little bit of time until we start seeing the results. But it is we will start seeing spick and span pavements out there. And then we're trying to make sure that they put the blue and black boxes back properly after those which is one of the things which drives me semi-insurance.
So I'd like to apologise to most people on the board about my tone of well. It's been a very stressful couple of years where I've been gaslit by a number of officers and councillors from I'd like to discuss the mishandling of subject access requests and restricted email communications and systems, and how these pose border risks and concern systemic vulnerabilities in local government data governance, not only of record keeping, but control of regulated information. This is why there's a clear legal requirement to report data breaches within 72 hours of discovery of the UK General Protection Regulation. On whose authority, Councillor Roberts, are officers within the Planning Department and Environmental and Community Services permitted to access and handle legally regulated subject access requests, access restricted email communications in relation to this, clearly marked confidential, and sent only to the head of development management, the head of fraud, and forwarded once more to the Metropolitan Police? Why have the above and other concerns that I've raised with you for 3 years not been treated as data breaches, investigations not immediately carried out, councillor emails not secured, the ICO not being made aware, officers and council representatives continue to act as their obligations and other data protection rules do not apply to them?
As I've said before, your case has been raised of the actual 3 top people within the data team. They found no basis for your claims. If you have additional evidence, we want to see it because we want to find out if there are issues. However, I've sent your emails and your requests to the heads of the North team and the data team, and they have looked into your problems with specific detail about the issues which you've raised. They have found absolutely no evidence. You may.
Okay, so you have all the emails that I have sent to you, and I have all the emails that I have sent to you. Are you willing to provide both of these to the head of fraud so that they find the emails that are missing?
They have full access.
Are you willing to provide it because you told me you were not willing to do so?
No. What I said I was not willing to do was to act as your personal private secretary for correspondence.
These are my emails, my control information. So how would you like me to provide this?
I've been sent so many of them.
How would you like me to provide this, please?
Getting back to the rubbish. Yes. I'm very glad to hear that they're clearing up after themselves, supposedly, in future. Because over the last few years, apart from the fact it's a case of 100 boxes, the streets are always in a much worse state after the rubbish has been than before. They tend to come around literally sling nothing in their butt. Half of it goes on the deck, and that's it. There's an absolute mess immediately afterwards. Once every 3 weeks, we get a street cleaner coming around to clean up after them and the following day, which is fair enough, but it's not every week. And for at least 2 weeks, the streets are messy.
There's a schedule which you can access online which tells you precisely what your streets are due to be cleaned. Obviously, streets with high footfall will be cleaned more frequently. Smaller cul-de-sacs and suburban streets will be cleaned less. And if you're finding that they're not coming around with the frequency that is advertised on the website, then let us know, because you are all paying for a service to a subcontractor which they're not keeping to, and we want to keep them to their contracts. So in
particular methodology has been spread steadily across the country. I've been pushing on this with colleagues for some years now. We had a trial of a fox-proof, luckily we only trialled it in a particular limited area, and one claimed that the residents, human residents of this borough, any more intelligent or than other comparable areas. Foxes are more intelligent than foxes in other parts of the country, and the fox-proof bins that were trialled recently were not fox-proof in this borough. I have been promised that another fox-proof design is being trialled. Until we successfully come up with a fox-proof design that is proof against our little foxes, we're not in a position. There are various alternative methods people have got of hanging their kitchen waste bins on us, putting them in a container with a couple of hooks around it, etc. People have found various ways that seem to work around that. It is a problem. It isn't a problem we have an easy solution to. The gentleman, I don't think is here this evening, who suggested that we start hunting them again. I don't think he's particularly serious about that. We know the problem and we're hoping to find a solution to it.
I'm just going to make a few more and then we're going to draw things to a close. So, maybe here.
Just back on the waste things, I've recently moved from Horsham District Council in West Sussex, where all of the waste was contained in wheelie bins with lids. We had none of the issues of people laid up on the street, and the foxes didn't get to it at all. I have to say that the collections were made fortnight, but you had a large wheelie bin in which to contain all your waste. And maybe that's a way that this could be improved. I know some places don't have a huge amount of space to store things, but most of us managed in the gardens that we had there. So I have to confess that we have food waste bins.
I'm aware that there are boroughs which have gone down the wheelie bin route, and there are areas such as this in Hampton Hill where it would probably work very well. There are also areas such as the Victor and York Road area of Teddington. There are areas where if you try to fit two wheelie bins in the front garden, you're taking up the whole back front garden. But beyond that, we also have a scattering of properties where people have doors that go straight onto the street and have no external space under their control. And maybe there are others where they don't have properties of that sort, but when we've looked at pricing, moving to fortnightly and monthly into daily price, and if you then make provision for people who've got special services such as external space, then the savings in this borough at least kind of disappear because we've got a scattering of those properties all over the place. That's why wheelie bins, they might well have some particular places, but they don't work in the tight terrace roads that are a significant part of this borough.
Indeed. One of the things which I would suggest in this house is that if you go along to some London boroughs and walk along, and it's an absolute light. You can't get along the pavements, narrow pavements, because they're full of wheelie bins. The front gardens look terrible because they've got these enormous wheelie bins, often overflowing with filth in them. And we try to keep Richmond content not just a pleasant place to live, but a place you believe place as well. So once it's possible for people with large storage areas to have wheelie bins, and some people do, in certain areas it leads to really downgrade, I think, of the analysis of those complex phrases or anything. The visible amenity of the streetscape is what is over here. So it's if you want that, if people tell us they want it, I would recommend going down the wheelie bin route as a standard.
new park opening in Fulwell Road at St Mary's School. At the moment it's called Rotherfield Meadow. There's going to be an open event on Saturday the 12th of July. So do go along and see what's there. Habitats and Heritage are actually leading on it for the council as well.
And just to thank you for your excellent job as chair this evening. It takes us all to time, and very well done. Thank you.
Councillors for their presentation this evening, and thank you to all of you for turning out and making this community conversation. Thank you. Thank you very much.